Tonight, in this episode of What's Up in Archaeology, we're going to talk about different growth patterns in Neanderthals and Homo sapiens sapiens, us. Recently, a study has been concluded on a child, a Neanderthal child that was uncovered, excavated in Spain, in the El Sidrón caves in northern Spain near the city of Burgos. And they found a Neanderthal child, dated to about 49,000 years ago. And when the archaeologists analyzed it, they found some surprising differences between Homo sapiens neanderthalensis and Homo sapiens sapiens. And we shall now share the screen and we'll discuss the article. I'm using the New York Times article. It is perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with it. I've read it well. It's comparable to any of the others. I've linked most of the studies that have been published on the site this child, and I've even found the full study in PDF form. It's my second link. It is free to view. There's no problems in viewing it. It is available. I've also included the link that gives you to the link of the PDF that you can download and read at your leisure. So we shall get on with the article. And it starts off, Neanderthals growing bigger brains took more time. We modern humans like to boast about our big brains. Yes, compared body size mass to brain size, humans are one of the largest comparison in terms of brain size to body mass. Dolphins are not that far behind, and killer whales, I think. This is just going off my mind, but humans, for their overall size, have huge brains, and Neanderthals had even bigger brains. But we continue to read. A recent analysis of a 49,000-year-old skeleton belonging to a Neanderthal child suggests surprising differences between them and us. Neanderthal brains appear to have grown to maturity more slowly than those of Homo sapiens. Now, why is that important? In the primates, especially the higher primates like us, the chimpanzees, and our other hominin cousins, the human races, Neanderthals, Denisovans, etc. Because we instill a lot of energy and nurturing and so on. Our human childhoods are extended, which gives them time, and protective. It gives them time for our brains to develop to their full potential, which I have included two articles. The last one's in the description, which is I have to click on. Sorry about that, guys. I can remember. The first one is from the Basics of Brain Development from the Proceedings of Medical Proceedings, the U.S. National Library of Medicine, National Institute of Health. That's the first one. Shows how the basis of how our brains, Homo sapiens sapiens brain, develop. The second one, oh god, my computer's bloody froze. The second one is as soon as it's up, it's from the University of Rochester Medical Center. It's a study, basically understanding the teen brain, and basically says that we achieve, modern humans achieve our maturity. Our brain matures at 25 years of age, and we can assume that an educated guess. And these studies of this one is sort of proving them, giving enough data that we can reach a conclusion that they also more or less reached maturity at an age very close to that. So I suggest you read both the latest studies on how the brain develops on modern humans, compare it to this one. So developing a clearer understanding for the reasons of the similarities and differences in Neanderthals and Homo sapiens sapiens, us and Homo sapiens Neanderthalensis and Homo sapiens sapiens, growth patterns. From now on, I'll just say us and Neanderthals. It's much easier. I won't go to the full nomenclature because it can get bloody boring, and we don't want that. So we'll just that's how I'm going to basically truncate the names. Never mind. Now, this study that the Homo sapiens and Neanderthals develop differences and similarities could one day help scientists better understand our evolutionary history and how we came to be as we are today. Yes. That's exactly right. What we saw is that it took longer for them meaning Neanderthals, to get their big brains. Antonio Rosas, he's the paleoanthropologist from the National Museum of Natural History in Madrid and the lead author of the study, which you can see the little link in the description there from Science, but that's behind a paywall. I've included that study, which is not behind a paywall, and you can be accessed freely to read it. It's in the description, in my description. So Dr. Rosas and his team studied ancient Neanderthal remains recovered from a cave system in Spain known as El Sidrón. That's where I told you it's near Burgos, northwestish of Portugal. Of Spain, in fact, yeah. It's not too far from me, in fact. It's only about 450 kilometers, 350 using the highway. So it's not that far from me. I could get there in a day, have a look around at the cave system, come back basically in the same time. So it's not that far. So they found the remains of a child. They found a dozen individuals, including this child. This is the picture. You can see the actual child, the Neanderthal child. They found his mother and a younger brother. Now, how do we know that? Easy, and it's not aliens, Gunny. It's with there was performed a genetic test on all of the individuals. So we know that they were linked. There was the child, his mother, and his younger brother in these remains in El Sidrón. The first thing the researchers needed to do with a child specimen was determine how old he was. They found out he was 8 years old. So they peeked inside his mouth, which had a mixture of 30 baby teeth and adult teeth. So his teeth were already maturing as normal child development occurs. And by cutting into one of these tooth, they were able to use a microscope to count the bands of enamel which grow similar to tree trunks, tree rings, to trees. That's a fact. Children, even us adults, but especially children, because they're developing, you can measure how old they are by splicing a section of the tooth and counting the rings. Each ring is 1 year old. Simple. Nothing complicated by that. Now, from the investigation, they determined that the child was under 8 years old when he died, because the bones didn't show any damage at all. So we can guess could have been a disease, could have been ate something that he shouldn't have and died, or he could have. There's a whole lot of possibilities which there's a whole lot of possibilities. We won't get into that. That's not important actually. But what is important is that when they investigated the child's cranium, his head basically, the researchers found that it was only 87.5% of the size of a fully grown Neanderthal's cranium. Again, they measured. Just to have a look here, these are the actual bones. Now, if you look here in this picture with the researchers, I will assume from the left. So Antonio Rosso is the one with the white shirt, and you can see this cranium. It's got a lot of black around it, but that's because it's been reconstructed, which the technique is there. I've reconstructed artifacts, not bones, but I've reconstructed pottery, for example. And there's a standard way of doing it, and we know how to do it. It's no mystery how we reconstruct artifacts and samples. It's like that. Now, the cranium size, I skipped ahead of myself. That difference from not us, the anatomically modern human children, who at age 7 have craniums that are about 95% of an adult's. So, this data shows that the Neanderthal children develop not in every aspect of their anatomy, which I will show you in a few seconds, a little bit, but in some aspects, in some portions, in some parts of their anatomy, it grows slower than others. That was a bit of a spoiler, but anyway. But now, because cranium size is a good indicator of the brain size, okay, you measure how the volume inside the cranium, we know the volume of the brain. We've done, experimental archaeologists have set the data by measuring countless skulls and etc. So we know the data is there. So it's established metric. There's nothing complex, nothing. What's the word? Nothing controversial about this. It's established science. The capacity of an adult of all hominins, we know the cranial capacity, even the variations that there exist. There are variations, of course. And the findings suggest that the Neanderthals' large brain took longer to grow to adult size than our brains do. Though the team did not have the child's complete skull, they were able to compare the available fragments with the skulls from a different Neanderthal and reconstruct the missing parts. Obviously, we know we have many fossils of Neanderthals on all different parts of their mostly of a good range of ages of the individual that died. So the archaeologists were able to reconstruct that child's skull, like I showed you before. If you can see where his hand is, the skull, there's a white bit, and you can see black. You have probably the resolution I've set a little bit higher. You can see that's the reconstruction. It has to contrast. It has to be a really defined contrast, so we know what is the bone and what is the reconstruction. That is been established. It's like a procedure that we have to follow. Like I said, I've also reconstructed some artifacts, a bowl and a cup, and two vessels, basically. Yeah. The team also found that the Neanderthal child still had several unfused vertebrae, the backbone. In human children, those vertebrae were fused around the ages of 4 to 6. So again, there's another aspect of their anatomy that takes longer to mature than us. But despite the differences in brain and spinal development, now this is the same things that the team found that in many ways, the Neanderthal child was no different from modern humans, especially in the elbows, the wrists, the hands, and the knees. Both seem to have experienced similar growth patterns, like having arms and legs that grew slowly between infancy and puberty, according to Dr. Rosses. That is the contrast that I was trying to say before, that the Neanderthals have certain parts of their anatomy that grew slower, that developed, matured slower, while others, like you said, the elbows, the wrists, the hands, the knees, these are pressure points. These are points that they're crucial in the motor skills, motor development. You have to have them develop faster. So your wrists, for example, tool making, the knees, running, holding your weight. The knees is where all your weight is really concentrated. With a body weight, it's not your feet, it's your knees. That's why weightlifters have many knee problems. They have to reinforce their knees. It's not like their feet. Their feet are quite planted, but the knees is what is the part of the anatomy of us, humans and Neanderthals, and all hominins basically that are bipedal, which actually concentrates all the mass of the body in that small area. So that would be handy if it developed quickly. The elbows, again, for throwing, for example, because they were hunter-gatherers, they would have been throwing things and lifting things. So you need also strong elbows, wrists, and hands for grasping, etc. So thank you, Davey. That's what I was. Yes, that's what I was thinking about. Yep, vestigial growth, more or less. Yeah. So, both seem to have experienced exactly. Now, as we went through the whole skeleton, comparing it to the skeleton of us, these particular differences stood out, contributing to the mystery of what accounts to the early differences between the two species. We were surprised because we were expecting some differences, said Dr. Rosses, but it was similar. Oh, wait. That's the difference. Similar. Oh, wait. Another difference. The brain size took longer. The fused vertebrae took longer. But the rest, oh, look, they're the same as us. So, yeah, they were our cousins. They were a human species, a human race, basically. Again, I'll emphasize this, what I just said now. They were a human race. Luis Rios, the paleoanthropologist, also from the National Museum of Natural History in Madrid and co-author of the paper, said at the news conference that the new findings about growth rates fit with the general held idea that Neanderthals' brains were bigger. And to confirm the hypothesis, we need to further investigate the craniums in the cave. There are a lot of them there. And looking for the remains between childhood and adulthood, and to complete the life cycle of Neanderthals. Let's see, which one did I see? See if the average. No, the average Homo sapien brain capacity, us, is around 1.3 liters, 1,300 and more or less cubic centimeters. You can change that into cubic inches, but divide by 2.5 if I'm not mistaken. But that's another thing. While Neanderthals was slightly bigger. I'm reading off the top of my head, but the biggest one that was found was 1.4 liters or close to that. So they were bigger. They had bigger brains, and maybe could due to the anatomy of the skull. As you know, our skulls are quite truncated. That means they are compact. You have, if you put your hand on your forehead, it's quite steep, and even the back part of your skull, it's also compacted in. It's not. It's compact. While the Neanderthals had a sloping forehead, and the back part of their skull protruded backwards. So it formed a different type of brain case. That could be the reason why they may have had that. They did have bigger sized brains than we do, but not forgetting the size of the skull is always limited to the pelvis of the female that gives birth to the child. That is the limiting factor that did limit human brain capacity. Now, we, in the modern times from 0 BC, from AD, 0 AD, or even earlier, because Julius Caesar was known to have been birthed by caesarean section. That's why we call it caesarean section. That does not limit the size of the brain capacity, the skull that you can have, because you're not passing through a small, limited-sized hole. That does not, and I'm not talking about the genital area. I'm talking about the pelvis. Yeah, the genital area can expand much more than the bones that are mostly fused in the pelvis. So that's why we are still evolving, and in the future, if we continue to evolve, and caesarean section becomes the norm, we could have brain capacities with higher volume, but that does not mean we will be more intelligent, though. But that's for another question. Just going to say hello to the chat. See if there's any questions being posed. And let's see. Oh, hello, Eon. Hello, I said Gunny to you already, man. Yes, Gunny, I am an ancient aliens denier. Because I can't stand that Greek guy's hairstyle, man. If he had another type of skull hairstyle, I could have been more receptive to the idea. Hello, Maleficus, how are you? Warped, I talked to you before. Side with you, John, Davey. Let's see. Here's a question for you. When a ginger's hair turns grey, will they have a soul or not? Of course they'll have a soul. That's how they gain a soul. That's why they all go to heaven, because as long as they're ginger, they don't have any souls. They're soulless. But then they get grey hairs and pumba, there you go. It just sucks in souls. So not other people's souls, their own souls, so they can go to heaven and so on. Finns. What about Finns? Let's say Finns. Gingers have no souls. Finland does not exist. Welsh are the true Scotsmen. French are allied. Germans should be gassed. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can agree with that, Maleficus. And there goes my monetization. Oh God, I hate this. I don't hate you guys. You go, God damn it, I'm a shit poster myself. So, but YouTube will find the way. Well, Davey, no, they did protect the women better. They did protect them well. All hunter-gatherers protect their women That's why we modern humans have especially the males have a high protective what's it called? Protective nature. I think that could be a safe word to say. It's apparent we don't like people attacking women. We fight. It's natural. It's so yeah. They did protect them, but we don't know why they died out. Okay. Wait. Whose hair, Carlos David? Let's see what's the answers. Whose hair will go? I have no hair. Well, I can stop presenting this. Let's see. Am I on? No, why isn't it on? Why isn't it not on? Darn stupid. I can't be bothered turning on my camera, so I can't show you my lovely hair, which I don't have. Anyway, I think this is enough for today. It's about close to half an hour. Hope you enjoyed this small talk. I enjoyed. This is my comfort zone, where I know I can say things that are factual without trembling too much. Oh man, the 1 sec. Then I'll see if I can turn on the camera. It's installing a new device, so we'll see how it goes. Oh. 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 My damn baddie. So, see? Now that's enough for my sexy scalp. Okay, guys. There we go. Going to go offline, guys. Thank you for appearing. Damn, I clicked on the wrong button before. That's why. So yeah. See you, man. See you all till next time. Let's see if I can do something this week. I might do a video. I don't know. I won't promise. But yeah. So good night, all. Have fun. Oh, before I go, someone said I drink shitty beer. So here is what I'm drinking. Franciscana Weiss beer. It's good. Bye-bye, people.